Today we're looking at Philippians chapter 1, verse 21. Let's get into this. Hey guys, this is Billy from Grace Youth. I'm here to bring you another devotional, and last night we talked about chapter 1 in the book of Philippians, looking at verse 21, and it reads like this: "For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." And to give a setting again, Paul is currently in prison. He is chained up awaiting persecution. He's awaiting his trial, whether he's going to be beheaded or not. At this point, Caesar has the power of life and death over him. He's either going to give him a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the trial. And so as Paul is facing this trial, a church he started 10 years earlier hears of his ailments, hears of his issues and his circumstances, and they send to him a messenger by the name of Epaphroditus. And Epaphroditus gives him money to pay some of his house arrest and gives him some supplies. And this gift was so great to Paul that he was so thankful for it. He pens the letter to the Philippians and he sends it back with Epaphroditus. And so we're right now reading in verse 21, and I want to break it up into three parts. The first part, Paul says, "For to me." For to me. Paul's life with Christ, his Christianity was personal, but it wasn't private. But everything he did was for Christ. It didn't matter what his friends thought. It didn't matter what his foes thought. He didn't check the environment before doing anything. He didn't check the political sphere before speaking Christ. He didn't check around who would be offended, who would be excited. He didn't care who was approving of him. He was for him. It was to live as Christ, and he was personally convicted of this. It was a personal conviction. It didn't matter what was going on the right, and it didn't matter what was going on the left. He knew for a fact that he was going to follow Christ. Some people are Christians because maybe their grandparents are Christians or their parents were Christians, but you need to understand something. I've heard it said this way: God has no grandchildren. You are either a son or a daughter of God by your own convictions, or not at all. You don't just inherit Christianity because maybe your parents have gone to church before. That is not how Christianity works. It is a decision. It is a choice made by the individual to follow God. So here, Paul's emphasis, he says, "For to me, to live is Christ." The second part to this sentence, "to live is Christ." In the original Greek, the verb is actually isn't even in the manuscript. It literally reads, "But for to me, to live Christ." His emphasis was on this lifestyle of Christianity, this lifestyle of following Christ. And to Paul, all of his successes in the past, all of his mistakes in the past, none of it mattered to him. It was not life. His education meant nothing to him. His feats, his goals, everything was about Christ. Here he's putting something together for us. His passion, his pattern of life, this was his goal, this was his aim. He is trying to make it a point that to live for him, to breathe, to exist on this earth, was to give everything to Christ. For Paul, life was about Jesus Christ. There are many people today that are living life, that are breathing, that may have life here on earth, but are not living this life. There are many people that are just letting life pass them by. There are many people that may be breathing, but they don't have a life. And Paul is stating that to even live, to exist in this planet is Christ. This is where all of life is found. And then he connects this idea with another idea, and he says, and to die is gain. And you can't have this second part without the part prior. He says, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. He didn't have a fear of death. Rather, death for Paul was actually a graduation to glory. Death to Paul was a stepping stone to Christ. It was a place where on earth he could live for Christ, but in death he could be present with Christ. And so death, he had no fear of death. He continued in life. He would, to most of us, we would look at it like reckless abandon. He gave his life fully to Christ. And to him, to die was just another step towards Jesus. And in fact, it was the ultimate step. It would be the best step. He would later go on to say in this very verse, but if I am to live on in the flesh, this will mean fruitful labor for me. And I do not know which to choose. Paul had a dilemma, and his dilemma was he didn't know which was better for right now. He knew which was better for him. What was better for him was to be with Christ. But he had a heart for the church, and he had a heart for his people, that so much so that actually he wanted to know if it would be beneficial for those around him for him to depart. He understood it was beneficial for him, but his love for people actually made him think of, I want to stay here so that it would be fruitful for those around me. It would be fruitful for the church. And I think that's incredible. And if I have one point to make during this, it is this. It is Paul's love for Christ removed his fear of death. And Paul's love for people made life worth living. And I want you to ask the question today as a Christian, or maybe you're not a Christian, but ask yourself the question, what am I living for? What am I spending my time on? What is it that makes life worth living? And I would argue today that if it is not Christ, you are living for something that will fade. You are living for something that will fall away, that will lead you astray. But if you would focus and put your heart's attention on Christ, life is worth living. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's an encouragement to you. I hope maybe you can take a break today, maybe pray and ask the Lord to evaluate our lives and just take a break from the world, man. There's a lot's going on in the world, and it's good to get away and be with God, to get away and be with the Word. And so I pray this was a blessing to you. And until next time, remember to take a break.